We're AMCI Testing, and welcome to our channel. If you've looked around a little bit at some of our other videos, you know that we're all about testing automotive product. There's nothing that doesn't interest us in this industry: the technology, the performance, design, everything. But today we're here to talk about the new Corvette C8, the most topical car on the internet, and actually something that we have a lot of personal interest in because, well, Gary Thomason's with us today, our lead test driver, and this C7 that's behind us is actually his car. He's a prime client for this car, trading up to it possibly, and it's been the subject of a lot of discussion here in the office. Obviously, you know, everything new that Chevrolet's put on it.
It's kind of a mic drop by Chevrolet. You know, the fact that it's mid-engine, which mid-engine screams supercar or hypercar. So it moves its category just based on the fact that the engine's been moved to the middle of the car. And then they talked about the performance. They said they had seen numbers to 60 under 3 seconds. Now, seen them and it runs that all the time are different things. But so they combined that that engine move, the fact that it now looks a little bit like certain other mid-engine cars that cost a lot of money. Then they dropped that price, and they said, you know, on everybody saying under 60 starts under $60,000. So that's only a little more than this car started at. So
It's sending a lot of people back to the drawing board.
right. So it's affecting everybody. You know and we can go through it all, but you know, NSX, Acura NSX is a perfect example. You know, $157,000 car. How are you going to sell NSX? Now, there are differences. It's a hybrid, which costs a lot of money to do that sort of thing, and it's all-wheel drive, so that's where that money goes. But still, you're forced. You know, do I need all-wheel drive? Do I need a hybrid? You know, $60,000 for the base car, and that 157 versus 60,000 is where that's your decision. That's a lot of difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be an incredible car for the money. I don't think there's any question about that.
Right.
And I think also probably worth saying that, you know, Chevrolet doesn't have a reputation for exaggerating those things. It's been a brilliant marketing tease, I think, the way they did it.
They did an incredible job, and kind of a mic drop, walk off the stage. What are you guys going to do about it? You know, kind of thing. So,
right, kind of moment. And, you know, when you look at all the other cars that are available between that 60,000 and the 130,000. I mean, it includes, you know, 911s and, you know, M2s.
Cayman GTS, for example.
It's a fantastic car, but you can't get it at the price they're talking about. I mean, the base price, you never find one.
Good luck,
Right.
But that's true of a lot of cars. Are you going to be able to find Corvette C8s at the base price? In fact, word that we've heard so far is that the first wave is going to be loaded 3LT, which is going to be a very expensive car.
Yeah. Probably will be.
So there's a lot of parts in that Z51 package that are going to matter for performance. But those parts add up in cost too.
So what do you think are the most important parts in that package? I mean, what you'd want in it?
Well, you get bigger brake rotors. You get that shorter axle ratio. The suspension calibration is different, and the adjustable ride height, which
that's right. That's important.
Corner, you can get the corner weights right if you're into that sort of thing, and maybe racing the car. So those are the kind of things that interest me, and you're going to need that to get that 0 to 60 almost certainly. Porsche's claim is 39 to 60. It's actually a little better than that, but not a lot better. And is that going to match the C8? No, it's not. But are there other reasons? You know, the Cayman's a very nice car.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of experience in it. It handles fantastically. But I haven't driven a C8. I'm going to guess it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, they're not going to make any mistakes, I don't think.
No, it's not rocket science to get Porsche obviously is very good at what they do, and the Cayman stands out as a natural, easy to drive dream handling scenario. So that'll be a tough, just as an example, that'll be a tough target to reach. And hopefully they will.
And there are going to be some other cars in that class that are going to be, I think, put off by this whole thing too.
Right.
Maybe even maybe even a 911 if you were talking about that kind of thing, or certainly like, if you were considering a GTR, or if you were considering
Right.
an M2 coupe, or
The GTR is now they just released the 2020. It's at $113,000 for the base GTR, going up to $200,000. So that's an old car, and I have a lot of experience in the GTR. It doesn't. I don't want to be negative about it. I mean, I like the GTR for what it is, but it's a very raw, harsh. It's a very race car feel, and it's also a little dated now. The car's been around a long time. So, but the Corvette is going to be, haven't been in it, but the experience with this car, it's much more civilized. Where the GTR, very slow shifting car, very harsh shifting car, very harsh riding car, very noisy car. You hear all the bearings in the suspension. You feel like you're in. This is a track car. So that sort of thing carries. All the competition has. Well, how are we going to compete with a C8 at maybe 60 or 70 or 80 with my $100,000 dated GTR or my Acura NSX? Or everybody's got a lot to think about.
Oh yeah, no question. We should probably also talk about mechanicals of the engine as well, because it's a new unit, and although not that different really.
Yeah,
right?
It's really an evolution of what's in this car. They've renamed it LT2. But it's very similar. The heads are different. The camshaft profile is a little bit different. The intake manifold is much different. The mid-engine design allowed them to raise the intake manifolds for straighter shot into the cylinder heads. And same thing with the exhaust. It's got that allows them to turn the exhaust manifolds upside down, and the torque has gone up slightly. So instead of being roughly the same on this car, 460, 465 for both, you've gained some power in relation to the torque. So it'll drive a little differently because of that. So, it's still going to have a lot of low-end torque, but there'll be more rush at the top end. I'd expect slightly better fuel economy out of it too, because with the 8 speeds in it. Of course, the old car was an 8-speed, the automatic, but that was not a particularly great shifting transmission. Again, from experience. And the Supras, for instance, the ZF8 in the Supra is a fantastic transmission when it's tuned properly, and shifts very quickly. Where when I bought this car, I had to have a manual because the automatic is just an old design. The new 10-speed, which is very good, wouldn't fit in this car. So that's why they used that dated 8-speed. But back to the C8, with all those gears, they've got first and second, especially first is very low. That's what's getting the car off the line, combined with that forward grip it has because of the mid-engine design. So with that banging off shifts, that's where they're getting that 0 to 60 number. So then the question is, when Chevrolet did that, were they using rollout in the measurement, which is what all the magazines are doing currently? That's where their equipment doesn't start until 1 foot of movement. And we know from our testing, we can set our equipment to start at 1 foot if we want to, but we don't. We're trying to measure 0 to 60, so our equipment starts instantaneously as soon as the car moves. So, and the high frequency it measures, it's an optical system, and the high frequency allows it to be very quick on, it catches it in less than an inch. So instead of a foot, you've got less than an inch. And we're measuring virtually from zero. And did Chevrolet Engineering do that? I'm going to guess they did, because that's 0 to 60, and what the magazines are doing is not 0 to 60. So in 1 foot, in our experience, in our testing, depends on the car, but you're going to get to as fast as 3 or 4 miles an hour, even 5 miles an hour in a car that launches really hard by 1 foot. So that's 5 to 60. It's not a rolling 5 to 60, that's different. So standing start 5 to 60 with that hard launch, you're going to get 2 to 3/10 quicker 0 to 60 because of that. Depends on the car. It might be as 1/10, but it could be up to 3/10 faster to 60. So that the magazines are going to get, if Chevrolet is saying under three is what we're seeing, that doesn't mean seeing. It doesn't mean that did it every
Whatever
time.
that means.
But I'm going to guess that's with no rollout. So the magazine should. I'm going to guess the magazine should be in the high 2 second 2.8. I'm going to guess. if Chevrolet did with no rollout. So we'll see.
So for those of you who don't know, when we measure acceleration, most of the work we do is for manufacturers who are looking for the absolute truth about where their vehicle lands compared to someone who just come out with something new, for instance. So they want us to be as truthful and correct in everything we do, the numbers we provide to them for internal use, as possible. So that's why we use an optical system, and that's why we always test from zero, and we'll test for days on something like that to make sure we have the absolute number.
That initial 1 foot is very important. Some cars cover that 1 foot very quickly, like say a Tesla Model 3 or Model S. It's moving at close to 5 miles an hour by the time it's going 1 foot. So, and other cars don't launch well, say a front drive, a four-cylinder front drive, or even a Honda Civic Type R. Which is a great car, don't get me wrong, but it's a front drive, and although
certain compromises with that layout.
Yeah, right. So it's not going to get to that 1 foot margin anywhere near as quickly as something like the C8. So that matters. So we want to capture that, and the magazines aren't doing that. Now they're all doing the same thing now, but you're missing that first part. So if you want to say 0 to 60, you need to be doing it from zero. So that's our point.
What do you think is going to happen with like quarter-mile trap and stuff on that car?
Well, that's a great point. And the horsepower to weight ratio, by my crude calculations, based on the information we have, is not going to be a whole lot better than this car, because the C8's a little bit heavier than this car. So this car runs about 117 in the quarter, and that varies depending on conditions and everything. But I'm going to guess the new car, because the power to weight ratio isn't hugely better, isn't going to be a whole lot better in its trap speed in the quarter. So when you're running, let's say you're comparing to a McLaren 720S.
Okay,
that's a great point. So another mid-engine car, rear-wheel drive, so no all-wheel drive advantage at the launch, but the McLaren's power to weight is much better. So the cars may be quite close to 60. But the McLaren's going to pull away afterwards that with a real high trap speed. So the question is, how is it going to compare after that 60 mark? So the 60 is not the end-all, be-all, so we'll see how it runs. But moving the weight to the rear will very much help that acceleration, obviously, to 60. And then that time saved in that 60 section makes the whole quarter mile better, too. So. But you want to be able to continue that acceleration curve, that very steep curve that it starts with. You want to be able to continue that like the McLaren does, as a very fast example. So that's where the Z06 and maybe ZR1 in the future will compare.
Well, so when we're talking about the mechanicals, maybe we can do that actually over at your car. We can kind of talk about how the new engine fits compared to the one in yours and where those changes occur and stuff. Might be kind of fun.
Sure, why not?
So here we are, the heart of the C7. Well, it's pretty crowded in there. It's hard to really see the headers and stuff. But, as we're talking about airflow and all that stuff predominantly, I think we should bring in George Deganis. He's our manager of testing operations, and George has a graduate degree in fluid dynamics. So he's the guy to be talking to you about this stuff, not me. So I'm going to bring him in and let him do that.
Thanks, Guy. So let's talk about airflow. What makes power in an engine is air coming in and air coming out through the exhaust side. So here, under this cover, we have the intake manifold. The intake manifold allows air to go into the engine. And here, this cover is very close to the hood, which means we're limited by space. Now imagine that this engine is moved to the back, and now the back cover of the engine is about this high. That gives us a lot more space to design a proper intake manifold with straighter runs into the ports, and also more volume, which affects torque and horsepower. Not only that, because we have more room, the exhaust manifolds can be flipped upside down, and they can run over the top of the engine.
Right.
And that allows you to design proper exhaust manifolds, just like a race car with equal length tube headers. And that again affects torque and horsepower. So, by combining all these things we discussed and the items we discussed before, we can say that the C8 has a lot of promise.
thanks very much for joining us today. We're going to have a lot more videos like this coming. Make sure to subscribe. And below, we're going to have some comparative charts talking about some of the vehicles and specifications we've been discussing during this video today, so you can make some of your own decisions about what you're going to do when you order your own C8. So anyway, thanks again, and see you in the next one.